Hey guys, welcome back to Real Housewives Recaps. Today, we're talking Heart of Invictus. That's right, it dropped today. And I'm going to go ahead and tell on myself, and you're going to go ahead and make fun of me for this. I'm okay with it. You guys, it dropped at 3 a.m. I got up, I watched all 5 episodes, and I'm here to talk about it. And I know, we shouldn't be giving Archwell Productions the views. I know. But I did get sucked in. I have lots of thoughts, some good, some not so good, and I can't wait to talk about it with you. I just really wanted to get up to watch it, get my thoughts out there, so that's what we're going to do. And I'm excited to break it down for you, to talk about it, to read your thoughts on it, to tell you my thoughts on it, all the things. All right, let's talk about this. All right. You guys, I'm tired. Bear with me. Okay. The Heart of Invictus dropped on Netflix very early this morning. Won't tell you what time I got up. 3 a.m. What? Who said that? See, I'm delirious. No, it dropped at 3 a.m. It's 5 episodes. And yeah, I'm just going to talk about it. I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. You know what? I'm just going to sit here and talk to you like we're having a cup of tea together. So let's go through this. All right. 5 episodes. Let me get the titles here. Okay. Episode 1, Something Needs to Change. 2 is Invisible Injuries. 3, One Step Forward. 4, Group Therapy. And 5, Where the Light Enters. Okay. Where to go through this? Okay. Here's what they got right. The soldiers, the men and women, I mean, you can't help but just love them. I mean, their stories were so endearing. And that's the bulk of what you get. All of them touch me in different ways. I'm very, like, a sappy person, emotional person, whatever you want to say. But you can't help but feel for these men and women who have been through unbelievable things. And they do go into lots of details on that. So, of course, you feel for them. You see their struggles. You see how hard they've worked to get to these games and what the games mean to them. Okay. So it definitely has that working for it. All right. Now let me tell you some crazy stuff. Here we go. Harry can't stop giving speeches. That is what I have in my notes. Harry can't stop giving speeches. I really think with this, it's like, what else could we use him for? Okay. I feel like what's going on here is Netflix said Meghan can't be saved, meaning like her likability. It's too far gone. Nobody likes her. So they just gave up. It's really funny. She is in this thing. I wrote down timestamps for different episodes, but literally you don't see her very much. Not that I'm complaining about that. That's a good thing. You barely see her. She maybe says about 10 words in the whole thing. There is one little part where she's giving a speech, but you really don't even get to, you don't see that. And that's a good thing. Again, it's more about the men and women. That's great. That's how it should be. I think that's fantastic. But they did do a ton of Harry. It's like they'd draw you into a really good story. You know how you watch a show and it's got several storylines going on and you really get sucked into the men and women's stories. You guys, there was one woman in particular. I'll never say her name right. I believe it's pronounced Yulia. She's from the Ukraine and she's an ambulance driver. And you get so sucked into her story. It involves being captured in the middle of this thing, being captured by Russia. Anyway, I won't give it away. Such a touching story. Okay. But they would suck you in with stories like that, and you're just like crying and moved and thinking about what these people have been through and what she went through. And then you have Prince Dipshit here, Prince Bozo, like, I was in Afghanistan, and this is what I did, and they got me out and stuff. And I was just like, shut up, shut up. We don't need you here. And that's what I would say about this is we didn't need him. I felt like it was very much a push to get Harry more likable once again. And I will, if I'm being brutally honest, there are points where he's a little bit more human. You kind of got to see a little bit of that old Harry kind of joking around and stuff, but I I don't trust it. He's not himself. It's fine. Whatever. He's gone. Um, I felt like this project was to make him likable, though. And and then sorry if I'm tired. I might be repeating myself, but I feel like Meghan, again, Netflix realized there's just nothing we can do there. So they cut her parts. I really feel like she was meant to be in it a lot more, and they cut her parts. And I say, whoever made that call, yay, you. But these are my overview thoughts, and I'll get into more details as we continue to talk. But my overview thoughts are this. While they're on my mind, in no particular order. Okay, so we're trying to make Harry more likable with this thing. We basically cut Meghan out of this thing. We'll get into it, but Meghan's red dress is the very first thing we see of her, which is, I wrote down the timestamp. I think she was, 16 minutes into the first episode. And again, she's barely in this thing, so that makes it much better. Another general thought about this thing is they made sure to use their titles. It would be like, you'd hear, again, these amazing stories of these men and women and what they've overcome and achieved and what they're working toward and how the sports helps them and stuff. And then it'd be like, Harry, the Duke of Sussex. It just wasn't necessary. He even went out of his way at the beginning to introduce himself. I'm Harry. But then again, they're flashing his titles every 3 seconds. I really did not care for that. I just didn't think it was necessary. But again, I don't expect any different out of those two, right? All right, what else? Let's see. So I talked about the red dress. Oh my gosh. Okay, let me tell you about the most infuriating part of it. And again, these are my general thoughts. I'll get more specific as we go. General thoughts, but I'm going to tell you the most infuriating part. So that story I was telling you about the Ukrainian woman that was captured. Again, I don't want to spoil it in case you decide to watch it. She's captured. It's all about that. They end up bringing her daughter in. I'm trying to talk around it so I don't give stuff away, but they brought in her daughter, Anna, to the games to basically honor what was going on with her mother, who was captured by the, at the time. Okay. My goodness. So the most infuriating part is you're just like riveted to the story and you're thinking about, oh my God, this daughter is dealing with the stress of what's going on with her mother. And, we've kind of gotten to know, I think it's pronounced Yulia. And so it's heartbreaking, right? It's heartbreaking. Anyway, they decide right at that point. So the daughter arrives to the games and it's a big deal because, again, her mother was there training and then her mother is just gone because, she's captured. At that point, that's when the editors, whatever, of this thing brought in Meghan and made it about Meghan. And that's when Meghan's giving her speech on stage. It's the one where she's dressed like Diana in the white wrinkled up top and kisses Harry on stage. That speech. Okay. That part really bothered me because I felt like what they did there is I'm happy that they barely put Meghan in the darn thing, but where they stuck her in was in a pivotal point where everybody's like, oh my God, what's going on? Because this happened in the third, I think it was the third, hold on, I'm looking back at my notes. No, I'm sorry, the fourth episode of this thing. Again, there's only 5 episodes. Fourth episode, Meg's doing this speech. We've built up this, oh my God, what's going on with this poor woman who's been captured? And that's when they bring in the daughter, but they cut to Meghan giving a speech. I just felt like it was just all wrong. And it was trying to make it about Meghan rather than what's going on with this woman. Is she still alive? What's happening? What's going on with her daughter? I just didn't care for that. I just felt like the focus there from the editors, from Meghan and all, was, of course, herself and her speech. And in her speech, she was talking about the dedication and I don't even know. It's just those word salads that she does, right? And so it's like, what are we doing? There's real people here with real problems and you're up there talking about your nonsense and making up problems as you go. I don't know. I really I had trouble with that. And then we see Prince Harry get up and give a speech about resilience and strength. Ugh, you can't even make this stuff up. Anyway, so that part really bothered me because, again, it was like, let's take the most intense story going on. They're all intense stories. I'm not comparing, but I'm saying one of the most intense stories going on throughout this thing. And let's put Meghan in the middle of that. I feel like that was probably, I'm just speculating. I don't know. There she is in the red dress. I'm just speculating here, but I'm wondering if that was something she compromised to. She was probably pissed that her part, if you will, got edited down to all of like 6 minutes in this whole thing. And in exchange, she wanted to be part of the most riveting storyline, to me, the most riveting storyline of what's going on with this woman who was captured. So I found that distasteful, personally. All right, what else? Let's see. General thoughts. Okay, so general thoughts. So again, 5 episodes of this thing. And here's the weirdness that hit me is, okay, again, 5 episodes. And it's called Heart of Invictus. We know this is about Invictus games. Okay. It's not till episode 4 and 21 minutes into episode 4. And most of them are about 45 minutes. I think maybe the last one's about an hour. Anyway, it's not until episode 4 and 21 minutes in until we actually get to the games. That's when the games start. So it's actually not, it's hard to explain. It is about the Invictus games, but it's also not about the Invictus games. It's not about the Hague Invictus games, I should say, like I thought it was. It's more about the people involved, how they got there, why they're there, that sort of thing. And I get that. You want to build the personal connection, but I found that weird. I found the people interesting. I just felt like with I'm not kidding you guys, every 5 minutes Harry's giving a speech, whether it's to 4 people or 4,000 people, it's speech. It's all about Harry. And so it did feel like it was completely dragging in parts. I think it would be so much more interesting if you just fast forward through Harry's parts and watched, the soldiers and their stories. But unfortunately, we have so much of Captain Dipshit that we had to get through in this thing that it just made the whole thing drag, which is hard. I don't have anything to compare it to. It's like the most interesting parts, of course, with the soldiers and the sport and the training, but then in these people's lives and their stories. But then it's like, oh God, now we have to hear him again. See. I just took pictures. I'm just showing them in the background, and here you go. It's like, you'll be in the middle of hearing a really awesome story, and then Harry's got to bring it back around to him and the time that he served and stuff. I just found that obnoxious personally. And it is interesting, I think, in an effort to make us like Harry more. He became a little bit more like Meghan, though, because he made it about himself. So I don't know how well that worked for him there, but let's see. I'm just going to cut through some of these pages here and talk about some of the highlights. Those were my overview thoughts. Let's see here. Episode 1. I'm just reading my notes here. Again, he introduced himself. My name is Harry. He talks about how the sport changes lives and saves lives. That seems to be the theme of the overall show. I don't think this thing needed to be 5 episodes. I think a 2-hour documentary would have been good. I understand why it probably would have been a little longer because, again, you get sucked into the actual people competing story, but you're dealt a lot of this crap of Harry stories. Let's see. I told you about 16 minutes into the first episode, we get a red dress Meg. That's what I wrote down. We got more views of the red dress Meg. No, thank you. Harry played victim right away in episode 1. I say right away. It was right away, meaning in the first episode. Talking about a lot of this has to do with mental health struggles, and I understand that he was trying to relate to that, saying, listen, I get it too, that sort of thing. But then toward the end, he decided to make himself victim-y again, and how did he do that? Well, I'll tell you. he talks about the press. He has to go after the media always. Oh God, you guys, I'm so tired. Okay, he had to go after the media as per usual, put his digs in there because he was mad that he got pulled out of Afghanistan because the media, according to him, the media leaked where he was, and he said it made everybody around him not safe. And to that I say, Harry, we read your book. You made everybody not safe. You telling details. I'm not going to rehash it, but you know what I'm talking about. The details of the things that he says happened in Afghanistan. I would say that made everybody not safe. You can't blame the media for that. You only have yourself to blame in that particular instance there. But he was angry. And that's pretty much how the first episode ends. It was 7 months to go. Again, it's just weird. It's so much of the build up to the games, but it's a little confusing because you see a lot of the games as the episodes go on, but it's more of like, here's the London games whenever those happen. Here's the ones that happened in, I think it was Georgia here in the state, or Atlanta, something like that here in the States. It's just a lot of build up. And again, it's kind of weird to me that we don't actually get to the 2022 games until episode 4 of 5. All right. So then we go to episode 2. You guys, Harry gives so many speeches. Have I said that? I'm giving speeches about Harry's speeches. So many speeches. This speech right off the bat is about the difficulties of mental health and the lack of support for people going through mental health issues, and how basically it's hard for people to get help with mental health issues. And you know what I'm going to say to this? I'm going to say again, I only know about this because of Harry's book, and I don't believe anything Harry says ever, so you got to take everything he says with a grain of salt. But according to Harry and Meghan, she had hit this point where she was struggling with mental health. You know what I'm talking about. And he wouldn't get her help. He blamed somebody at the palace because they didn't want it getting out that she was dealing with mental health issues, right? So they just let it be, and he had to help her. Why couldn't he get his wife help? This is a question I've asked a million times, because I'll answer it because none of it's true. That's my opinion. None of it's true. Anyway, it's just so infuriating. But I say all that to say, all right, let's pretend like it is true. And somebody at the palace said, sorry, we can't help you, even though you're struggling and you're, considering doing these things. We can't help you because what would happen if it got out? And yet he's giving a speech about how important it is to help people struggling get the help they need. And yet he, by his own admission, did not get her the help she needs. So I just, it's not lost on me. That's all I'll say. It's not lost on me. I just think it's more of him putting out these things, and then we read what he has to say, and then he says something else, and it just makes the other thing not make any sense, right? Much like me right now. Okay. Again, this is episode 2. We go into 6 months to the game. It's so long. And then we get down to, I think in this, and then we go to episode 3. We're down to 8 weeks to the game. It's just so much build up to the games, and then very little of the actual games themselves. Okay. Again, another speech by Harry, because that's all this thing is, thanking soldiers. And he explains that service runs in your blood. All right. Let's talk about that. Again, I would say I understand what he thinks he means by this, but he sure doesn't live this mantra, if that's truly what he believes, right? He says it never leaves your body. It's there. And again, I say, well, I believe that for everybody else, but it doesn't seem to be the case for you, Harold and Fraud, right? Because you sure didn't mind bolting out of there, throwing your family under the bus and bolting. All right. Let's see here. Episode 4, group therapy. It's 2 days till the games, and this is probably the most we have Meghan. Again, it's still not much. Hallelujah. This is where I got frustrated because, again, I've kind of talked about this, but the that Ukrainian woman was captured and her daughter was brought into the games in her place, and kind of as an honor to her, and to also, I gotta give it credit. It helped, according to the daughter, the mother, everybody, it helped spread the message that what's going on with this woman and that she was captured. Okay, so it's this very touching, moving story where you're like, oh my God, that's, incredible. But then Dum Dum gets up and gives speeches. And then this is when they brought in Lady Dum Dum. I don't want to give her a title, Meghan, to give her speech. And again, I felt like I just kept thinking, oh, okay, so she's pissed that she didn't get much airtime on this thing. So she's going to make sure she's edited front and center with the, to me, one of the most riveting storylines, again, of this Ukrainian woman. So I just thought it was a cheap ploy there. But again, she gives a speech about dedication to people. I would say, what do either of them know about dedication? She introduces her amazing Prince Harry. I think that's what she said. I think she even used his title. Jeez. The Duke of Sussex. He gives a speech about resilience and strength. Again, what would he know about that? We've seen neither of those qualities from either of these two, right? He speaks about his emotions. He speaks about how his therapist has taught him to let things bounce off of you. And I say, again, you're contradicting yourself, because we read your book. That's the opposite of letting things bounce off of you. We're still hearing about squabbles you and William had when you were young. So no, you don't let things bounce off you. Nice try. Plus, isn't he in the middle of like 15 million lawsuits about, I don't know, all the wrongs he perceives, especially from the media? So no, he doesn't let things bounce off of him. And then we get to episode 5. About 13 minutes in, Meghan is up, I don't know, giving her, or no, we get who cares? We get to see Meghan for just a minute, and then Harry gives a closing speech to the ceremony. So again, this is right at the beginning, 13 minutes into episode 5. So of the actual 2022 Invictus Games, we have from episode 4, 20 minutes in, until about 13 minutes into episode 5. The rest is all just build up to the games themselves. And then the rest of this episode is what happened, kind of what's going on with the men and women afterwards. And then you just can't make this stuff up. So it ends with Harry giving a closing speech. This is before we see what happens with everybody. Harry gives a closing speech, and he says, if you're here to make your family happy, you've achieved it. And again, I say, Harry, how are you going to give a speech about making your family happy to all these people? What do you know about making your family happy? Because you name it, none of them are very happy with you. Oh, and what are you going to look to Meghan for advice on that? She's pretty good at not making her family happy either, aka estranging from everybody. But these two, they will never learn. Anyway, so then the whole series ends with how everyone ended up. You kind of get some of the storylines tied up, and what's going on with everybody. And I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not going to tell you what happens with the captured Ukrainian, but it is such an interesting story. For that alone, I would say look into her story, because it was fascinating. And again, I'm not here to take away from any of the achievements from the men and women in this, I don't know what you call it, documentary. I am here to judge Harry and Meghan as I do. And so with that, I would say the parts that I enjoyed, of course, were the stories of the brave men and women who have served and overcome these incredible things and have found meaning with these sports. I think it's a great idea, a great everything. I don't think Harry and Meghan should be involved in it. That's my opinion on that. And even in this documentary, or whatever it is, the docuseries, 5 episodes, I just felt like they were a distraction and we didn't need them. And I mean, I get the comments. I have so many of you saying there must be a board. Can they oust him? I have the same questions. I posted that about Angela Levin suggesting that they are trying to get him out for next year. And then I have people saying, how can they oust him? It's his thing. It is confusing. I tried to look into it too. The way it was explained, and I wish I could remember which book explained it. It may have been Cordia's. That's kind of what I lean toward, but I can't remember. And I may have this a little wrong. Again, it's like very early in the morning, so bear with me here. I've been up all night. But it was basically explained that they needed to give Harry a purpose. And I can't remember who it was, but somebody at the palace kind of had the idea and helped nudge him into that. And so it was kind of like, you know how I tell the truth here. Here's what I think. I think Harry's a nuisance. I think the palace covered up for him quite a bit. I think he's spoiled and rotten, and now we get to see what he's like, right? Now that the palace is not hiding it, not that it's their fault. I'm just saying that now that we can clearly see what he's like, we can see it. And I feel like, and it was explained in one of these books, again, I wish I could remember which one, that he needed a project. And so somebody came up with this. And I've also read that it was heavily borrowed from, read that how you will, was it The Wounded Warriors? But regardless, let's take all that aside. I'm just saying that to say, I don't know if it's possible to oust him. If it is, I say do it. If it's not, I'm not trying to take away from the men and women who compete in this, who it means something to. Obviously, I just think I think Harry and Meghan have no place in this thing. I don't think it's right. I don't think they should be a part of it. And if they want to continue to support the organization behind the scenes, great. That's where that should stop, is my opinion. You know what I'd like to know? I'd like to talk to people at this thing who actually compete in their families and stuff and see what they truly think about this. Are they glad he's involved? Do they feel the same way as us where it's like, what? Where does this guy get off giving a million speeches about anything? What experience does this guy have about anything? I mean, clearly he's had mental health struggles, so I guess from that standpoint, sure, but I don't know. I just don't think he's in a position to give anybody advice on anything, truthfully, so I don't know. Anyway, guys, wow, I've gone on for 30 minutes, but that's my thoughts on that. I'm very curious to know yours. Will you be watching? I've had so many of you say you will not be watching, and I get it. I totally get it. I don't, seeing that big, in association with Archwell Productions right off the bat, that was all it took for me. Like, ugh, it just made me feel icky. I would rather donate directly toward, I don't want anything to do with Archwell. I would happily donate toward an organization that goes directly to these men and women. I want to bypass Archwell/Netflix altogether. So, I'm all for that. Again, I think about Prince William and how he gave his settlement that he received from the phone hacking case directly to Invictus. I think that is very cool that he did that. It says a lot about William. And imagine that. He didn't have to give a million speeches to make it known. He just did it quietly, and that was that. Meanwhile, Harold cannot stop giving speeches in this thing. If you want to see speeches of Harry, man, watch this thing, because that's all that it was. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for sticking with me on this. I really hope you enjoyed this recap. I know it was kind of all over the place, but that's kind of how I felt like this was. It's hard to talk through all these stories going on simultaneously. But I hope I was able to make it clear. I hope you were able to enjoy my recaps. I'm curious to know your thoughts on this. I just appreciate you all so much. I truly do. Again, leave me your comments. Give me your thumbs up. That always helps. That sounds crazy. Give me your thumbs up. No, if you feel like hitting that thumbs up, it really does help out the engagement. Your comments help, all of it. And I really do appreciate each and every one of you. I got lots of good stuff coming out this week. Lots of videos I've been working hard on behind the scenes. I'm excited to release all those. Lots to talk about with these two. And as more news about this comes out, I I am very excited to talk about it. Again, I think I'll be, as I'm recording this, it's still dark outside. I think I'll be the first to get this thing up. Maybe we'll see. And I'm curious to know how other reviewers, what they think of it and their take on it, and if they felt the same as me, like, shut up, Harry, stop speaking. Anyway, guys, thank you for everything. I can't wait to bring you so many more like this. Honk honk, my Drunk Goose Club. I appreciate you all so much. I will talk to you again soon. Take care.